Welcome to another great episode of Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast where this week, curation and castration meet relaxation.
Ooh.
That's right, we don't have a topic this week. It's one of our patented check-in episodes.
Yeah. I love these.
Yeah.
Have we only done one?
I think we've only done one, but in a way, most of the early episodes included a portion of this.
Yeah, that's true. I love casually hanging out podcasts. I think that I don't know if they're fun for anybody else, but
Whatever. This show isn't for other people.
We're not getting paid.
You're not putting these on the internet or something, are you?
No.
These are for posterity.
Yeah.
These are to show our children, to show them how cool we were.
Right. I bury these in my basement in a time capsule.
Kids, we liked Resident Evil 4 before they put it in the Museum of Modern Art in 2030.
Oh, God.
Yeah? You like that dream?
I like that dream.
You like that little fantasy I cooked up?
I'm ready for that.
We're on the way there.
If we keep talking about it.
They're going to have to eventually.
Although we just said nobody ever listens to this, and we put it in my basement.
Yep, you Dropbox it to yourself.
If I did that, I don't think I would take the time to edit them. I would just I would let my children deal with the raw. I'd cut the same stuff out that we have to cut out, but I don't want my kids to hear some of that.
Now, the idea of inheriting Ben and Curt Till It Hurts has just gotten me thinking. So, you know that classic Gothic story of like, all right, my granduncle just died and I'm going to inherit his mansion, but I need to stay one night in it. Stop editing these podcasts. When one or both of us dies, our kids are going to inherit all the rights associated with Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, but they have to edit and put out all of the podcasts
backlog
we've ever recorded. And they have to do that before they get a single dime of our money.
So, also, I think what we need to do is make sure we name at least one of our children, like a name that rhymes with Ben or Curt, so they can keep the, it'll just be like Jen and Bert till it hurts. Yep. That's going in the idea book.
Nailed it in one.
That's a keeper.
Yeah. Neither Jen nor Bert is going to be the name of my child.
Fine. I'll have to have a sibling podcast.
Oh boy, how have you been?
If I were any better, I would have an orgasm or an aneurysm.
What? What is that? What is this?
I don't know.
You're doing all right?
I'm going through. I'm going through. Your boy's going through a lot. It's winter.
It's the holiday season, folks.
All of a sudden, winter is here, and
everything's covered in ice.
Everything's covered in ice, and it's cold, and it's dark, and I'm not allowed to eat junk food anymore, and it's just not going so good.
Ben and Curt Till It Hurts is about to get real dour, guys.
It's gonna take a dark turn for a few months, but it'll be
episodes
okay.
will just be 15 minutes of groaning.
Yeah. How have you been?
I'm doing great, Curtis.
That's great. That's just fucking wonderful.
I'm doing pretty awesome. One of the reasons I'm doing awesome is because I finished a novel.
Wow.
Not writing one.
Oh.
Yeah.
I figured.
Yeah. I finished reading a novel, like a pretty thick novel, too. It's called V. It's by a writer named Thomas Pynchon, and I've been reading it for a while. It's not really within the purview of this podcast, but because this is one of our casual check-in episodes.
Our check-in.
Yeah, I figured this is the thing that I've been doing, other than Ben and Curt Till It Hurts stuff and baby stuff, and working and sleeping. Other than that, it's been reading V for a few weeks now.
So I want to hear about V, but then I want to hear about eating and sleeping. Because those are, that's like a big crossover for us as far as hobbies go.
Yeah. V's a great book. V was written in 1963. It's Thomas Pynchon's first novel, and it's almost obscene that he was able to write a novel this good as his first novel. It takes as its topic a young man named Benny Profane, who's kind of doing what he calls yo-yoing up and down the East Coast, where he just kind of travels between New York and Virginia and over again, finding spare jobs wherever he can. You've got Benny Profane. There's another man named Herbert Stencil, who is on a quest to discover who this woman referred to only as V is. He knows about her through his father's journals. His father found out about this woman V through his own travels, and Herbert Stencil is on this, monomaniacal quest to find out who V is. And then you do find out about V, and V ends up being kind of a character in its own right in this book. I tell you, Curtis, Thomas Pynchon's a real prophet, all right? He knows what's going on. Even in 1963, there's some shit in this book that it's stirring how closely it relates to our lives today. I would say probably the main thematic element of it.
Hit me with some examples.
An example, the main thematic element of it is this idea that people are foisting off a certain amount of their humanity onto inanimate objects and abstract ideas. That's straight out of one of the characters' mouths in the book. And look around you, man. Like we use inanimate objects. This show is essentially about reflecting yourself in inanimate objects.
Yeah.
So much of culture today is about, I see a bit of myself in this, and I see a bit of myself in this, and I'm gonna, put. What are some examples? We've both put a great deal of our humanity and identities into Resident Evil 4.
Yes, that's true.
Right?
I've also, I can, especially with video games, I can look at, old games that I played and be like, wow, 27-year-old Curt really does some shit because of that thing that I subjected myself to 20 years ago.
Yeah, all these, they get deep into our subconscious minds and use us as big old meat puppets, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. There's some weird stuff. There's some weird stuff going on. And then you consider the extension of that, which is that soon robots are going to be able to talk to us, and what's that going to be like? A literal transformation of the inanimate into an animate being.
You know what we may have talked about this on here before, but I shouldn't even say it out loud because I'm sure nothing good will come of it. But do you have a smartphone, or are you still?
I have a smartphone.
You have a smartphone.
Yeah.
Have you ever found instances where you feel like your phone has been listening to things you talk about?
What do you mean?
I have experienced times where if when you go on Facebook or Google, it generates ads that it thinks will be interesting to you.
Yep.
And I will see ads for things that I have weirdly mentioned in passing to my wife, but I know I have never Googled before. Yeah. I can't think of any way in which my phone would know that I had been looking for this particular thing or talking about it and then trying to show me deals for it.
Well, that's one of those things that makes you realize that none of us are really individuals. We're all just types of people, right? That's how advertisement functions, is that they know, well, you probably Googled something that other people who are interested in the thing that your phone advertised to you also Google.
Thank God, because I guess that's better than my phone listening to me.
Yeah, it may also be listening to you.
Don't do anything you shouldn't do. No, it could be.
Yeah. Who knows? So Western civilization has been kind of stepping back away from religion, which is good in some ways and bad in other ways. And one of the ways in which it might be bad is that now people have no all-seeing eye that sees them even in private. And what you do in private does, in fact, contribute to what you do in public. So maybe one of the good outcomes of the smartphone revolution is that if our phones listen to us all the time, then we'll always be accountable to somebody, right? Yeah. In which phones become our new gods. That's healthy. Our God serves me advertisements. That's cool. I'm down with that.
Yeah, and
this isn't a crisis that needs to be averted.
We created our own God.
We created our new gods, and he lives in my pocket.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, do you?
Because it's not good, Curt.
No, it's bad. That's very bad. We should all be really scared. Because the other thing that God does is he serves old people advertisements on Facebook.
Yeah.
And those old people then vote for people who don't know anything to lead the country. Sorry to get all political.
No, I actually had a political point to kind of talk about today. Not really, though, but a little bit. I think, do you ever, what's most concerning to me about having cell phones and stuff, have you ever, I'm sure you have, because it's probably not that big of a deal to a normal human, but have you ever just gone offline for a few days or a weekend, or you just be like, oh, I'm going somewhere, I'm not having my phone?
Yep.
I've done that multiple times, and after like the first day, it's fucking awesome.
You feel amazing.
It's great.
It's like a whole new lease on life.
And as soon as I come back home, I'm like, well, I guess I'll watch some TV, and then it's right back. Like, I remember how good it feels to not use Facebook for 4 days, and then I just continue to use it constantly every day.
Yeah. Makes you think, huh?
Pretty bad.
So, what... I heard someone say this, and I've now used this quote twice in the last couple days, and I can't remember the exact quote, and I can't remember who said it, so I apologize to everyone listening that I'm about to do a bad job quoting something.
We don't have to cite sources on B and C till at H.
Thank God you got that in there so early today.
It might leave me time for a second one.
You've been waiting till the very end of the episode to say B and C till at H, so I was starting to get worried that people weren't noticing that we were doing this. But the thing that someone said is that you when you wake up in the morning, you exist in a world that moves at a certain speed. The world has a tempo, right? It's the tempo of your biology. It's like, well, I need to pee every few hours, right? That's your speed. But your phone, the world inside of your telephone, the world of Facebook, moves at light speed. It moves at the speed of electrons. It moves at the speed of an entire community of people who are not geographically tied together. And it's jarring, I think, in ways that we can't even quite describe. It's jarring to move from the speed of biology and of the world at large, from that into the speed of light. Going from 0 to 60 in the time it takes you to pick up your phone and hit that on button is probably really bad for us.
See, I embrace it. Are you familiar with the movie Bicentennial Man?
Yes, I am.
I want my life to be the antithesis of that. I want to have people start to say, is he really a man anymore? As soon as I can like volunteer for a robot spine that doesn't hurt anymore, sign me up. As soon as I can get, knees that will never get bad, done. If I could get it without having to pay for it, oh yeah.
No spoilers, but we have been talking about V this whole time, just so you know. Like that's and that thing that you just said is almost spookily relevant to some shit that happens in V that no, I don't want to spoil the book for anyone for one of our 5 listeners, at least 2 of whom I'm going to make read this book.
Yep. The other 2 might not be able to read.
They might be babies.
That's why they listen to this show, because I can't imagine you would choose to listen to this if you could
read well enough to find another podcast. I can't imagine that you would want to listen to this. No, our podcast is good.
I like our podcast.
I really like our podcast.
I do too.
Sometimes I wake up and Megan is listening to our podcast, and I think to myself, like, I shouldn't be as proud of this as I am.
I'm really glad my wife doesn't listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't say anything that I wouldn't want her to hear, but I just, I don't know. I feel like
it's too intimate.
You know, this may tie into our conversation about V and this my intimate relationship with my wife. One of the biggest hurdles that her and I overcame as our relationship got more and more serious is she would kind of say, like, you don't tell me about things. Like, I find out more about you from looking at Facebook than, actually talking to you, and we are a serious couple.
Yeah.
And because I'll do something and then be like if it doesn't feel like a really impressive thing, I just won't mention it. I won't mention, like, oh yeah, I don't know, went to like the record store after work and I didn't buy anything. And then like I came home. But just the different type of person that my wife is, she likes to hear those things. Like, she wants to hear how my day went, what I went, where I went and stuff like that. And I'll like bring it up and be like, oh, I already went to Bull Moose today. And she'll be like, what, you did? I'm like, yeah. Why didn't you, tell me? I didn't think it warranted interest. But yeah, so I feel like that's kind of, that was hard for me to like pinpoint. Like, I should probably talk about myself instead of just living in my dark cave and being on Facebook all day.
That's a real skill to develop, is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily something that comes naturally. Being able to talk about yourself and being able to pick out the things that are actually worth talking about.
Yeah.
Being able to distinguish the important bits from the unimportant bits. Or being able to see the forest instead of just individual trees. Being able to say, like, well, not much of interest happened today, but I went to Bull Moose. And Yeah, I kind of did the same thing, where for a long time, like, Megan would ask me about my day, and I'd just say, like, nothing.
It's fine.
Nothing happened. It was fine. I'm still alive. I'm breathing. So, and I wonder how much of that I don't know psychologically where that came from, but over the years, and it took me, let's say, an embarrassingly long time to come to this conclusion. But all it is the knowledge that your partner is thinking about you.
Yeah.
And when something happens to them, it's like, oh, I should remember to tell my intimate life partner about this person with whom I share a life might be interested in knowing how my day went or like what I was doing. And it's also like, why are you being so cagey about, are you cheating on me? What's going on? It's opening up, which is relevant to another thing that I'm going to talk about today. But yeah, V is an amazing book.
Is that an HBO? Did they do an HBO show?
What, V?
Yeah.
No.
No.
It's a lot of people refer to Thomas Pynchon's novels as unfilmable.
Oh.
Someone made a film of Inherent Vice, and it was one of my favorite movies that came out that particular year. By someone, I mean Paul Thomas Anderson, one of the greatest living directors. So it takes one of the greatest living directors to properly adapt a Thomas Pynchon novel. The other thing is that he's not obscure. Like, a lot of people know about him, but his books are really hard.
Yeah.
Not to like pat myself on the back or anything. Like, I read a hard book, but I did.
But I did do that.
I did do that, and I am proud of it. Pat.
Yeah. No, it's good to give yourself credit when you do things like that. It's
a hard book, and a hard book is much harder to adapt into a film.
Yeah.
You'd have to adapt it in bits and pieces for sure.
Netflix miniseries.
Netflix fucking miniseries. Fucking binge watch V. Great. You're going to get a lot out of that, pricks. You fucking animals.
I hate what we've become.
I do. I'm disgusted by our culture.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. People at home listening, consider reading V. If you're looking, if you're the kind of person that wants to sit down and really like dig into a difficult read, think about making V your next read, because it is hard, but if you want to read a hard book, there is no book that is too hard for you to read. I think that's a good rule for life. It's like if you set out to read a hard book, if you try to force yourself to read a hard book, you're not going to get past page 50 or whatever. But if you actually enjoy the process of like reading each sentence as though it's important, and paying attention to sentences that you don't understand and spending a couple minutes mulling them over, maybe, getting up and walking around or something and thinking about like, all right, what did this paragraph mean? Take some time to untangle it. If that kind of process sounds intriguing to you or whatever, consider V. Maybe not as your first book. If you haven't read a book before, don't make V your first book. Or do. I don't know. You don't have any expectations. You're a blank slate.
Just because you didn't do it that way, Ben, doesn't mean nobody else should do it
maybe
that way.
Maybe V would be an amazing first novel. Well, like, you think about like the Odyssey. The Odyssey was most people's first story, first structured fictional story that they heard, and that's a hard story. That story has a lot going on, but maybe that makes it more worthwhile, and maybe it makes it more compelling. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't read books, so.
Curtis, don't read V.
I won't, just because you said that.
Even though that thing you said about replacing your body parts with cyborg body parts was quite unnerving for me to hear that you say that.
That sounds all right to me, And I don't know if you got to this point in New Vegas. Did you play Old World Blues?
No, I haven't played any of the DLC yet.
Can I give you some spoilers?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you wake up in this place, and these particular characters are scientists, and they kind of like mutilate you, and they replace your brain and spine with robotic brain and robotic spine.
Huh.
And throughout the main the main objective of that DLC is to get your spine and brain back. But then when you get to the end and you see your brain and your spine in these canisters of fluid, it shows you the different perks and of each one, and you can decide to keep your robot brain and spine or go back to your human brain and spine.
Nice.
Robot, hands down.
Yeah.
This guy.
Are there any downsides to keeping the robot brain and spine?
No. It's just different perks. It's, you know how in the beginning when you choose traits rather than perks, where it's kind of a give and take thing?
Yep.
It's like that.
Ah, nice.
Fallout New Vegas. It all comes back to Fallout New Vegas.
It always comes back to Fallout
And then
New
it always
Vegas.
goes back to Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. You remember that part in Resident Evil 4 where Leon S. Kennedy, rookie cop, gets his spine replaced? Ripped out was what I meant. He gets it ripped out. They don't replace it. They just rip it out.
They just rip it out.
They just sever it with a chainsaw.
Yeah.
How great is that scene?
What a great game.
What an amazing game that is. You jump through a window, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you just walk through a door? It's weird that I can't remember.
I'm trying to remember which.
The first time you see the chainsaw guy.
The very first time you see one is
you're in a house, and then you either walk through a door or jump out a window. I can't remember.
What you're saying. It's when you have to jump out a window.
Okay, all right, Good. Your first instinct is usually correct.
Yeah.
To jump out a window.
I was confused because there are two possible first chainsaw guys.
Depending on what?
Depending on what you do in that area. If you go into that house and then put the stuff in front of the door, and then you jump out the window, and I'm sure this is great for people who have never played it. A chainsaw guy will come at you if you go in that house. If you just run forward to try to leave that area, the door, it'll be blocked by a chainsaw guy.
Oh, neat. Okay, well, cool.
That's why I was confused.
All right.
I'm just going to cut all of this out.
Yeah, this is all. What have you been up to, Curtis? What do you want to check in about?
I should have gone first because I haven't been reading books. So.
It's okay. I wanted to get the book out of the way.
Not a whole lot, honestly. I mean, it's that holiday season,
Yeah.
You don't have time.
The doldrums.
I don't have time to just binge media like I would like to. But I have been not really notably, but I've been watching Christmas movies a lot. It's I try to jump back onto that high that I get when I watch 31 horror movies. Mm-hmm. Christmas movies aren't really the same.
It never lives up.
It never. Yeah. It's never as good as the 31 days. But mainly the thing that I had put in my notes today, which it seems kind of lackluster, but it's really all I had, is I have had a weird attempt over the years of getting into Metallica, and I've never really been able to do it, and I think I'm finally getting to that hurdle where I like Metallica, which is weird because I feel like most humans are just if you don't like something, why would you keep trying to like it? It's who cares? There are plenty of things to like. You don't have to like all of them. And that
should be the subtitle of the show.
Yeah. Why are you listening to this show when there are plenty of other things you can go do? No. So I've just been working my way through Metallica's catalog and then playing a lot of Stardew Valley. Yeah. So not a whole lot of excitement.
How are you finding Metallica?
So, I started off on a sour note with Metallica because we are about at that age where, aside from hearing a couple Metallica songs on the radio, many people our age found out about Metallica when they were being dicks about Napster.
Yep.
And so that was kind of...
Lars.
Yeah, he was the real...
You know what's fucking weird, though?
Tell me.
Metallica was kind of right.
You think?
Weren't they, the music industry is sort of dying now, and, that has something to do with... That has something to do with piracy. It also has something to do with Steve Jobs saying, nah, a song's worth 99 cents.
I think...
But hip-hop is bringing it back. Hip-hop is the grassroots SoundCloud movement that is elevating the music industry once again.
I think they were dead wrong. I think Metallica was dead wrong. I think that anytime there's a big paradigm shift with how people engage media, the person who is doing really well and established at what the current way of engaging media is says, excuse me, this is really bad. This is going to ruin whatever X is. When video rental stores opened up, movie distributors were pissed that you could watch a movie without paying top dollar for their movie.
They hated that.
When rental stores started carrying video games, Nintendo was pissed because now you could play an NES game and realize it was shit without paying $50 for it, and which really I think in those instances I think it just made more competition, and I think a lot of times competition is good for improving the quality of things that get put out.
Fucking free market capitalist over here. Fucking Adam Smith over here.
I told you we were going to get a little political then.
Yeah.
And then I think the same thing kind of happened with Napster, not so much from the pirating end, but from digital downloads. I think that was a big thought was, well, if you can just download the one song you want, you're not paying $20 for the entire album. Whether you're getting it for free or just paying 99 cents, that's still not $20. So I think Metallica and people of that were pissed, but it's because they didn't want to adapt to what would eventually become streaming, or where artists now get paid, for every 15 streams of a song counts as one album sale. So it changes how people engage media, and I just think Metallica was a bunch of dicks and not that they were stupid, but I think that they had a big voice and a big opinion, and people in general, not just Metallica, weren't really ready to embrace the next wave of what music would be like.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. But I can't help but feel that we lost something.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. I've got a frog in my throat.
You got my sick.
Yeah. I can't help but feel that in the same way that we lose something when, watching a movie on a movie screen, that's what you call those, right? Turns into watching a movie at home in the comfort of your home. Turns into, now I just binge watch some bullshit to waste my fucking time between work and sleep. And where does it stop, Curtis? Where does it end? We're on a slippery slope right now, and I cannot see the bottom.
You're right. Now you can watch. You just have a Netflix app on your 4-inch phone.
Yep.
Your phone.
Yeah.
Screen.
I'm in my car. I'm binge watching Stranger Things while I'm at the stoplight.
Think about how not many years ago it was where you had to go to you had to go outside and travel to a giant screen that showed films, and then you had to wait 2 years to be able to buy it in your home. And now you're just can just lay naked on your couch with your phone 2 inches from your face and be like, oh man, this fucking season of Daredevil's sick.
Maybe instead of saying that a telephone is our attempt to recreate God, maybe we should say that it's our attempt to recreate the devil, because all it seems to be doing is isolating us more and more from each other and giving us more and more efficient and practical ways to realize all our fantasies and dwell on them for everybody, every millennial at least. Most millennials now have a private fantasy that I am not as good as everyone around me.
Yeah.
Because all we do, and this is well-trod territory at this point, but all we do is sit around and look at the little box that tells us that everyone else's life is perfect, and then we compare their lives to our shitty lives without realizing that, no, everybody's suffering all the time. It's the basic state of being is suffering.
Yeah.
Or if you want to take the Buddhist take on it, we're losing something here, Curtis. We're losing something. I'm desperate to try to claw it back.
I obviously I would never say any names on this show, and I don't even really know.
Other than Jen and Bert.
Yeah. That's why I say B and C. I don't even like to say our names.
Yeah, it makes this feels gross.
But I was talking with somebody the other day, and they were saying that their child is dating somebody, and sometimes they'll both be at the same place, and they're fighting via text message. They don't talk to each other to resolve the conflicts that they have. Yeah. They text each other. And I can say, and maybe this is my experience, and maybe I'm different because I don't know, maybe I'm just dumber than the average bear, but I think that most arguments, like 90% of most arguments, coming from a guy who's only been married for like 3 months and my life is great, can be, you say, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. You know, I didn't realize that was your thought process. And that's that 2 sentences right there. That's the end of the argument.
A good apology really works miracles. That's another thing it took me way too long to figure out.
And I think that it's a little bit harder to do that via text message.
Yes, because an apology over text message always sounds shitty. It always sounds like you're being an asshole. I'm sorry. Because when you're reading a text message, no matter what kind of tone you're trying to put into a text message, when you're reading it, the person, especially if they're mad at you, which if you've just been arguing, they probably are, because that's how arguments work. If they're mad at you, they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They're not going to read that text message in good faith.
Ben, I'm just laughing at you because once you embrace emojis, that problem just goes away. Everybody knows exactly my tone because I use a sick emoji.
Use the poop emoji after my apology text. Yeah, no, that's very real about, like, kids no longer know how to communicate. And is that a problem? I don't think there's a way to say that's not a problem.
See, here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know if it's a problem.
Of course it's a problem. Kids don't know. People have been communicating basically the same way forever, right? It's eye contact and talking to each other.
It's a problem if you... All right, hear me out. I'm not necessarily. I'm going
to give you the soapbox. I'm going to give you the talking doll.
And I have the talking doll, and I just want to say this is not necessarily what I believe. This is just me, just speculating. Maybe it seems bad if you're trying to force a younger generation to behave in the way that us old people do it. But maybe we're Metallica. Maybe we're just not able to embrace the way humanity is moving.
Oh God, what
which
if?
Is not in a good or bad way. It's just different.
Just progress.
It's just the natural progression of humanity.
What if it turns out to be way better? Like, what if this is how you transcend? What if this is how you, like, get out of the daily struggle of life?
You just plug into the phone, baby.
You plug into the phone. All you do, if you mediate your entire world through this little funny box, then you're going to be on easy street. You'll think, I don't know that the science backs that up necessarily, but maybe if you're a phone person living in a world of non-phone people, you're miserable. But if you're a phone person living in a world of only other phone people, you're chill as fuck. You're feeling great. You're understanding everybody perfectly because all you do is you just type it out. There's no you just try to, maybe you learn to interpret it in the most generous way possible, and that way nobody can ever be shitty to anybody else or sarcastic to anybody else because it's customary to just, like, take everybody as though they are being as nice as possible, and you just live in a nice world.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I wouldn't say I agree with that. I think you're right.
Fucking
with,
no way that's happening.
The science doesn't really back that up.
Yeah.
Only, I mean, now obviously I'm not trying to go against you as if you were trying to make a point. You were just playing along with my hypothetical. But I think you're right that being on your phone all the time, no amount of being on your phone can capture the fact that people are bored sometimes and they don't post all the bad things on Facebook. So it does come back to that.
Well, it's important to be bored sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's important to be able to deal with being bored without saying, well, looks like it's screen time for me. Looks like it's time to climb into the internet and have myself some fun.
Yeah.
Because the internet's not a good place, man. The internet's a bad place. The internet is indistinguishable from hell.
I would argue only because
this show gets put on the internet.
I hope hell's worse than the internet, because that's not really that bad to me. Like, if being in hell is just being on Facebook all day, but being a little bit bored while you're doing it.
You're on fire, but you're on Facebook at the same time, and a demon is poking you in the genitals.
Can you take selfies, though?
You can take a selfie of yourself and the demon who's poking you in the genitals.
One weird old guy thing that I do, and I don't know why, because I'm not particularly against cell phones or anything, but when I'm at an event or something, I try to take as little photos as possible because I try to make myself remember it. Mm-hmm. I'll be like, I did this. There's no, not taking pictures is not going to mean I didn't go to this concert or go to this party. So I want to like remember. I want to make memories of it, not have to look back at pictures.
You want to be consciously opening all of your senses to what's around you, even sometimes the smell.
Yeah.
You know?
But then I can't get all those Instagram likes. So I'll go take the pictures that my friends took at said concert.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you know, why would you... You're at a concert, you're watching one of your favorite bands live. Why would you want to watch it through a cell phone screen?
Yeah. It's gonna take the experience down.
Sorry. I was just gonna say I'm glad we went down Morality Cast instead of me just playing a lot of Stardew Valley and listening to Metallica Cast.
It's good. A good morality cast every once in a while. Ben and Curt talk about what's ailing the world, just to make sure everyone has perspective,
just
so
to
that
keep
fucking
things in check. Just to remind everybody that I don't give a shit about any of it. Just like, what if they're right though?
You know,
what if we're just old?
Well, we've already established that you don't think the human race is worth saving.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I've got other things that I've been doing.
I forgot this whole thing started because I had been talking about Metallica being dicks about Napster. Yeah. Let me jump back in there for a minute. So I had already started with having a kind of a sour, like Metallica are kind of dicks. Like, so it's hard to get in for me. And maybe it shouldn't be. We kind of talked about this with Lil Wayne. God, this episode's going to be great.
This is a great episode.
We're just writing a fucking killer paper for college right now, citing our own episodes. Uh-huh. Maybe it shouldn't matter at all if the person who makes the art that you like is a dick or not. Maybe it doesn't matter if they're a philanthropist or a fucking asshole. It should be completely separate from, you know, how you just enjoy their art. Which leads us down some I don't know. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Can you talk about Woody Allen? Is that what you're saying?
Well, see, because I like to think that should be the case. Like, so what if Pink Floyd are fucking assholes? Like, they make good music. But then I think you're in a dangerous place of like, so what if that football player punches his wife? He's a good athlete. So what if Roy Moore fondled some youngins? He's a great Republican. Like, when I put it in that context, I'm like, no, I know that's not good. Like,
I know I've crossed a line. I just need to find where it was.
So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you should only listen to musicians that are philanthropists.
But you can't know, right? You can't know what's inside of someone's heart. All you can know is if someone comes out and says something that you think is the kind of thing an asshole would say, then you're like, well, that person might be an asshole. Maybe I should reconsider how I interact with their art or what I think about it or how fervently I promote it in the world.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where I come from. Like Roman Polanski. Are you familiar with the Roman Polanski story?
No.
Roman Polanski drugged and assaulted a teenage girl in, the 80s, I think? 80s or 90s. He's a big filmmaker, big director, directed Rosemary's Baby, directed The Pianist, directed all kinds of good movies. He's an excellent director. And I wish I could tell people to watch his movies because they're really good, and I will continue to watch them and I will continue to enjoy them. But I can't in good faith tell other people that they should watch the films of Roman Polanski.
That is always something that has been fascinating to me, where you make that line of how bad a person can be versus how good of some like art they create, where it's not worth the trade-off anymore.
Now here's the other thing about Roman Polanski. I forgot to finish the Roman Polanski story.
Sorry.
So no, I just forgot to. You didn't interrupt me. I came to an end. I finished my solo, and we did fours, and then we went back into the. Yep. I've just misused the jazz term so poorly. Fuck this cast. I need structure. So
we need categories.
What
in like a month we've eliminated too many categories. We have nothing left.
It's all about finding that balance. So Roman Polanski, they found out about the crime that he did, and then he went on the run, and he is still on the run in a nation that refuses to extradite him. So while he's been on the run, he's continued to make successful movies.
Damn.
Right? I say on the run. He's just been living in a country that won't send him out. I think it's like Switzerland or something. I don't know. Don't quiz me on that.
If it isn't Switzerland, we apologize, Switzerland.
We're sorry, Switzerland. If you would totally, deport Roman Polanski to whoever is looking for him. I should really get my facts straight before I talk about anything.
There's no way you could have known we were going to talk about Roman Polanski.
It's true. That was not in the text messages that we exchanged about what we were going to talk about on this episode. So anyway, that's why Roman Polanski is especially shitty, and why it's especially difficult to justify watching or, even worse, talking about his movies publicly in a glowing light. Anyway.
No, I think that's interesting to me, because there are certain celebrities that if you're not invested in their material at all, it doesn't matter. Like Chris Brown. I'll never fucking buy a Chris Brown CD because he fucking punched Rihanna in the face and beat the shit out of her. But I also don't fucking care about Chris Brown's music. So it's easy to make, like, man, fuck Chris Brown. It's easy to say that. But when you take, I don't know, say like Pee Wee Herman, I don't remember his real name, or like,
oh god, neither do I,
or Michael Jackson, where it's like, if these things are true, but he makes sick music, like, how do you?
What are the allegations against Pee Wee Herman's actor?
They are that he masturbated in a porno theater.
That's not that bad.
It's really not. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
And oh man, I can't even get fucking started because sure, it's weird, but that's not why people are fucking pissed at him. And the same fucking thing happened to Michael Jackson, and it's that Michael Jackson and Pee Wee Herman, whose name I'm going to have to look up we're going to be talking about this guy for more than a second. Paul Rubens.
Paul Rubens. I was never going to remember that.
No, neither was I. So, these two people in particular are fucking weird.
Yeah.
And I think is when you find out that, say, everyone acts like Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, is this like fucking weird sexual deviant. When did that happen? Like fucking 30 or 40 years ago? Like a while ago.
I think it might have been 20.
20 years ago.
Right.
It was a fucking while ago. And it kind of fucking ruined his career over it.
He was untouchable for a while.
And then you look back and you're like, is that really that fucking weird?
That
he
fucking
bad? Masturbated in a porno theater? Like, that's
it's not like there were kids around.
I'm gonna say that's at worst poor etiquette. I think like it's just a little rude. It's not nice.
I'm sure it was off-putting for the people near him.
But I think looking back, in Michael Jackson's case, I don't think Michael Jackson molested any kids.
Man, I don't even know.
I don't
think he did either. I don't know all the facts of the case. I know he did some weird shit that he probably shouldn't have done.
That's definitely worth
But
mentioning.
who among us is who
doesn't sit naked on their bathroom floor and eat pans of brownies?
Let he who is without sin cast the first stone, Curtis.
Thank you. And I think that is when things like that happen, these people will be vilified for these things that they've done, and then when you can step back a little bit from it, you're like, man, that's not that fucking weird. That's not that bad. And really, I think it's just this like when humans have this just like a pecking order. If you watch a fucking group of chickens hang out, it's sadly similar to watching a group of people hang out.
I'm going to take that fucker down.
You take a weird one or one that's a little bit different, and all of a sudden something that everybody has in common is that they don't do what that one strange one does.
Yeah.
And I think that is I think that those two people in particular were just fucking weirdos. And it ruined their career to be weirdos.
Yeah,
and got strangered.
And perhaps even though we understand why it happened to them, and I think we both agree that it's a perfectly natural impulse. You see it in the animal kingdom. You see it in human societies all over the place. It's possible that is an impulse that we should not be embracing and should in fact be trying to suppress. Maybe the world would be better if we had more understanding about people's foibles, because we've all got them. We've all got stuff. There are things that I'm never going to talk about on the podcast. There are things I'm never going to tell anybody about. Right? So
we all have our things.
And I think it makes us feel better about our things when we find out about someone else's thing. And it's like, at least I don't do that.
You know what I wonder, though? And we don't need to get too deep into this because, honestly, no one wants the answer. But sometimes I'll do something that's weird or think of something, something that I do that I'm pretty sure is weird. But then I think, what if everybody does this same exact weird thing, but nobody talks about it?
We all feel too much shame about it.
I love shame. What a great...
Hey, you know what? Everybody at home listening, whatever your weird thing is, I give you carte blanche to assume that Curtis and I also do it. I'm speaking for Curtis as well on this one.
That's on the record.
That's on the record. That's in the cast. I'm saying I think it'll make society a little bit healthier if Ben and Curt Till It Hurts turns into kind of a dumping ground for people's weird anxiety, like fetish actions that they do, that they feel bad about. Anything that you feel bad about, if it makes you feel a little bit better to imagine that Curtis and I do it right before recording. Your
fucking dear friends at B&C Till It H, they do it as well.
We do it and we love it. We're not ashamed.
We also go into grocery stores and just get a gallon of milk and then say, I can't just buy a gallon of milk and put it back and leave. Like, people think I'm fucking weird if I'm just here buying a gallon of milk. We all do it.
We all do it.
I fucking really hope somebody was just like, oh, thank God.
If you just felt a weight lift off your shoulders, then you don't even need to thank us. If you want to drop us a line, please, you're welcome to. But if you don't, if you just want to keep that happiness to yourself and walk a little bit lighter through your next day, then God be with you. All right.
So what else you been up to?
Nothing that compares to what we just did.
That's instead of catch-up cast, we'll have to just start doing fucking weird and not media discussions because clearly this is
what we want to do.
This is where we need to go.
This is where we shine. Well, we try to talk about. We just tried to. How do you feel about the video game episodes we just did? Let's be candid about this.
It was a little weird for me because a lot of times this happens a lot, which is probably good. I'll go into a series thinking I'm going to think one way about it, and then upon revisiting whatever we're talking about and talking it out, I think differently. And I think, with Tarantino, it was, I had said, even on the podcast, that, Kill Bill's my favorite, but, Pulp Fiction's definitely the best Tarantino movie. And now, I don't think Pulp Fiction's the best Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
I think we probably disagree on the best. I think you're still you're still on that Inglourious Basterds.
I've watched Inglourious Basterds again since. It's still the best one.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I need to watch it again.
Are you on the Kill Bill train now?
I adore Kill Bill,
yeah.
and I think it is his best.
It's
his best film.
It is such a close second for me.
Yeah.
Against Inglourious Basterds that it's almost indistinguishable. Like I feel no ill will.
Right.
I feel no animosity towards you because it's like I can easily imagine myself liking Kill Bill.
This isn't
much.
A Sonic 2 situation where there's just anger about it.
Yeah.
How about you? Where did you come out on the video game?
Well, I guess it made me reconsider how I want to do the series because it felt like an episode that belonged a lot earlier in the B&C Till It H canon. That felt like something that we would do before, which makes sense because we came up with the idea to do best video game console of all time pretty early on in the cast.
That's true.
And then...
So we're not regressing. We're just running out of good ideas.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I came down on it. I'm glad we did it because it gave me a lot to think about vis-a-vis what we want the cast to be like. And I enjoyed talking about video games, That's fun. But, hey. So anyway, the other thing. Speaking of allowing yourself to be open to the foibles of humanity rather than closing yourself off, I listened to The Wall again.
Did you?
For the first time in a long time.
Yeah?
For the first time since I was a teenager. And man, being a grown-up gives you a whole new perspective on that album.
Yeah. So, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the podcast, or ever mentioned this outside of, like, a personal group of friends. But the last time I watched The Wall, I was in high school, and I was on mushrooms while I did it. And it was weird. I haven't watched it since then.
That's probably not the best place to...
Yeah. I didn't find it particularly enjoyable.
Found it all too real.
You know, I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, and I've never been a huge fan of The Wall.
Yeah.
It's probably like... I mean, I don't know. Pink Floyd's got some pretty weird albums,
Yeah,
but
I
like
guess they do.
I'd probably say it's like my 7th or 8th favorite. Like I like a lot of Pink Floyd albums more than The Wall.
I have really basic bitch taste in Pink Floyd albums. Cuz like, man, favorite Pink Floyd album? It's got to be a tie between Dark Side and The Wall.
You know,
Like, and I'm not that fucking basic. Like, I'm like, yeah, animals. You know, you dig animals. I do really love animals. And
what's your
and
favorite Pink Floyd song? Another Brick in the Wall. Like
Another Brick in the Wall Part 2.
No, you don't even know there's more than one part. It's just
Another Brick in the Wall.
The one you hear on the radio.
Yeah, or I'd call it something like "Leave Those Kids Alone" or something. I like "Hey Teacher."
Yeah.
The Wall is tight, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give it a listen sometime. That's another one that is borderline prophetic in how. So when I was a teen, I was mostly obsessed with what artists said their art was about. I would kind of take that as canon and as gospel and be like, well, that's the beginning and end of the story.
Yeah.
So I, read an article or two, probably a Wikipedia page about The Wall, and it said, he came up with the idea while he was on stage, and he got so angry at the audience that he spat at them. And I was like, okay, so it's about the relationship between a performer and their audience. And upon re-listening to it with a little more perspective on exactly what different paths through life people take, it's clearly more about young men who decide that rather than dealing with the world, they would rather hole themselves up and just live their private, personal lives and construct a wall, or even use their experiences to build a wall out of, to keep things out, to keep new experiences out, and to just live that one life. And the rock star thing is another part of it, but that has to do with that closing off from the world is associated with fascism in The Wall. And he also seems to be, because I think the whole conception of it was the one guy, I can't remember his name. It's not Roger Waters, right?
Yeah.
It's Roger Waters?
Yeah.
The whole, Roger Waters' whole conception of the rock star as fascist, rock star as Hitler, right? Or rock star as Mussolini, as fascist leader. That almost seems to be a sub-theme beneath this idea of closing yourself off from everything. It's like one of the dangers when you close yourself off from something or from everything around you is that you might get this myopic view of the world as though there's only one thing that's important, and as long as you just bang on that one drum, you'll get pretty far. And then you turn into Adolf Hitler, and you really fuck the world up for a lot of people. So yeah, that's the new perspective on The Wall that I got.
I think it would do me well to watch it. I don't think I own it anymore. I used to, and then I think I sold it because I didn't care. I hadn't watched it since that time I did shrooms. But I think the current taste of America has a little bit more fascism in it than maybe it did when I was in high school, or maybe I just wasn't noticing it in high school.
There's definitely more of it now.
So maybe it would be good. Maybe all of us should watch The Wall. We'll do a Wall episode.
I think we should. We should.
All right.
And then, even this is what I mean by it being prophetic, is Roger Waters saw or perceived in some way that this was happening, that a lot of young people were going through the world this way. And then a whole generation went and invented a tool, the smartphone, that you can just use to construct that wall. Like, that's one of the main uses for a smartphone, is to, it's like, oh shit, world's getting to be a little too heavy for me right now.
Yeah.
I better look at my phone for a little while.
Yeah.
Man, how are we going to turn it around, Curtis?
I don't know, but I had noticed a few minutes ago, I looked at the time to see how we were doing, and I was shocked that we were only about an hour in, because I feel like we've covered so much.
This is a wide-ranging
This is a
cast.
real conversation.
It's going to be tough to come up with a title for this one.
Yeah, shit. You know what sucks is you had said something that I was like, that's going to be the title, and then I forgot.
Oh, no, it'll come back to you. Just stop trying to think about it right now, and it'll come back to you later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we turn this around?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, bye, guys. No.
Peace.
We lost it. I don't know. I don't know how we turned it around.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's important to... I don't know. That's one thing that interests me, especially with The Wall, is that... and I was kind of the same way as far as looking at being interested in an album or whatever, and then saying, I really like this particular album or movie. I want to learn more about the person who made it and listen to interviews with them. And when I was younger too, there was also this kind of like, well, they said that it meant this, so that's what it means. And then you get to be cool and tell people that that's what it means.
You've learned a piece of trivia.
Yeah,
and it's like, I can impress people with my trivia. Yeah,
and I think
know that feeling.
To make another callback to our previous episodes, either with Lil Wayne or when we talked about was it Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys?
Yep.
When they were talking about the lyrics for that, I think sometimes an artist can just create something and they don't know why it's good.
I think most of the time an artist does not quite know if they're doing their job. This is going to get me in trouble. If an artist is doing their job, they are expanding past the realm of knowledge that they have. They're going out into the unknown and charting a path in the unknown. And that means it's unknown to them as well. Right? You try to... Jonathan Blow talks about this sometimes, too. It's like, if you finish a piece of art and you feel like you've answered all the questions, then you haven't finished a piece of art. You really need to... You've written an instruction manual if you don't feel like there are any open questions left over at the end. Your work of art should... Art, I don't know what art should do. One of the great things that art can do is lead you to ask a question that you would not have otherwise asked. A very complex question sometimes, but a question that you can't even get close to answering. But by beginning to ask the question, part of the rest of your life, if this is a work of art that has affected you deeply, is going to be trying to find an answer to that question. Yeah, that's art, man.
That's art. I'm glad we figured that out in under an hour. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that, we can... I'm still being a little meta here and talking about the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, I'm going to get meta on being meta.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing that I really like about our show, that I feel like in my limited experience, I don't see other shows do that. Where like, if we'll talk ideas out like on the show, and I think it's probably because our show is not a big deal. So like, there's no risk to be had.
We're not going to lose advertisers over it,
right? But I think that that is something that I have noticed where when I'll see a show develop over time, and you don't really know what ideas cause these things, or how these ideas come about. And I've always kind of liked that. It helps that I assume I know every single listener of our show, because I probably I know half of them.
Hey, I didn't actually tell you this.
Okay.
Speaking of listeners though, our episode on It versus It has like 50 views on YouTube.
Hey, it's starting to go viral.
Shit's starting to happen, man. Shit is starting to happen.
And that's kind of the weird thing that I've kind of, in like the past few years that I've been like creating content, it's similar to like when someone creates something and they don't know it's good. It's weird how you'll be excited for an episode because you think it's a great episode idea and you have things to talk about. And then it's like, yeah, it was okay.
Maybe it fizzles a little bit.
And then sometimes I'll like go look at stats and I'll be like, really? I barely remember making that episode. I didn't think it was that impressive. Or like when we end any episode, I don't know about you, but I always have this like general feeling of like, wow, that was a good one. Or like, well, that's another episode. Like,
another week in the can.
Like, obviously not every episode is going to be a fucking banger.
Yep.
But I don't know. I probably lost my train of thought on that, but I like being in contact with you guys, you listeners.
Yeah.
I like our hangout cast.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
What else have you been up
to? Nothing.
Yeah,
that's kind of it. I don't think I'm going to talk about Silence. I literally had to try to make myself think about the movie Silence today to try to come up with something to say about it. It's a Scorsese movie. Martin Scorsese continues to have a weirdly old-fashioned directorial style, while also like combining an old-fashioned directorial style with all of the like lack of meaning in spectacle that comes with being a modern director and having the capabilities of a modern director. Maybe someone who actually knows something about film would like shit on me for this, but I'm not saying Martin Scorsese isn't a good director. I'm just saying that he's not really to my taste.
We'll get more into this on our Martin Scorsese
or Scorsese series.
It's a series of. We could do a Taxi Driver episode.
Oh hell yeah! I'd have to watch Taxi Driver.
You never seen Taxi Driver?
I've never seen Taxi Driver.
You should see Taxi Driver.
I probably should.
I'm not going to. There's like I'm not gonna. I try not to be one of those people, because when you're on the other end of it, it's like it's not fun for anyone when someone to me is like, you've never seen Game of Thrones. I'm like, no, fuck off. I'm not gonna watch Game of Thrones. I'm just
not watch your fucking dragon cartoon.
I fucking missed the train on Game of Thrones, and that's it. I'm never gonna watch it. So I try not to be that guy that's like, you've never seen Stranger Things. Like,
there are people who say that, though.
Yeah, no.
It's really messed up.
You should watch it. It's so good. So I try not to be that guy with movies, but you should check out Taxi Driver because I think it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
As far as a movie goes, your investment versus what you get out of it. Taxi Driver.
You come out ahead after watching Taxi Driver.
In my book. And It's great because it's one of those movies that you only have to watch once, and then you're like, yeah, I don't know if I ever need to watch that again. Like, fulfilling, but that's you one and done. So Schindler's List for you.
Real heavy movies.
I hate I feel like I compare things to Schindler's List too often.
You do talk about Schindler's List quite a lot. It seems like Schindler's List made an impression on you.
Yeah, it did.
It changed you.
I had to watch Schindler's List and American History X for a course. And I watched it at a pretty impressionable age, so it kind of stuck in there. We should do an American History X episode. Only because I want to know your thoughts on American History X. Excuse me.
I think American History X is a really great movie. I think it's a really great movie that has been... It kind of got Fight Clubbed. Where, like, the people...
Holy fuck, yeah. It got Boondock Saints.
Yeah. The people who that movie is about now love that movie. The people who are like, yeah, man, fucking Tyler Durden's my idol. It's like, he's the villain. We've become, I think I might have talked about this on the podcast, but we as a society have stopped being able to differentiate between the good guy and the bad guy in media in quite a disturbing way. It happened with Fight Club. It happened with American History X. It happened with Star Wars, weirdly. Like, people love Darth Vader. Kids idolize Darth Vader. It's like, he's a Nazi. He's literally like Heinrich Himmler. he's like one of Hitler's underlings who is actually secretly worse than Hitler but doesn't get attention for it.
Now we're gonna do a top 5 villains episode. Yeah. Just because
people love villains.
Yeah, they do, because villains are cool.
Yeah, right. That's what it comes down to. This got brought up, and the only reason I have American History X fresh on my mind is because the YouTuber Lindsay Ellis did a great video about the ethics of satire of Nazis, and American History X is one of the pieces that she brought up as like, well, it's not really satire. It takes a serious look at Nazism, at neo-Nazis, but by not being satire, it leaves the possibility open for people to actually look, because it takes it allows people to misinterpret it because it's not satire.
I think that was one of my bigger gripes with that movie. Maybe not, I shouldn't say gripe, but one thing that's always stuck out to me was, I won't spoil it if you've never seen it, but the ending of that movie, I feel like has a purpose, but it doesn't hit you over the head with it, so it could be I could see a neo-Nazi watching that and taking the wrong purpose from the ending of that film, because it's I don't know if vague is the right word, but it's
interpretable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good word. I don't even know if I could say that knowing the word. Nice word.
Open to interpretation,
yes.
Perhaps, let's say.
It certainly is open to interpretation.
Yeah, I think that's good, and I think that's necessary. I don't think that American History X shouldn't have been made. But in a world where American History X exists, and it has had the effect that it has had, it definitely should be on your mind if you're making a movie or any piece of art about Nazis, or about neo-Nazis, or about the kinds of imagery that neo-Nazis use, or about the kinds of fantasies that neo-Nazis have. Because a lot of the ending of that movie is, it's a pretty intense piece of art, because it can be, two people can be sitting next to each other watching that movie, and for one of them it can be a nightmare, and for the other one it can be their deepest fantasy. Yeah. And for a work of art to be able to embody both of those extremes...
Sorry, phone.
For a work of art to be able to embody both of those extremes is a special thing, and something that we really should think more about. Like, why is that? How is it that we can be so fragmented that people can have... They can both have the same idea in their head, but for one of them it can be terrible, and for the other one it can be the thing that they want more than anything else?
You know, I have a possibility of an answer for that, I think. Is that for these types, we've chosen movies to be a type of media that we consume. Like, people like movies, and they like to be entertained in that way.
Visual entertainment killed the novel.
Because they like stories. That's what it comes down to, and a movie is a lot quicker to indulge in. And I think that over time, you can't put out a movie now that's... I'd say that, and then fucking Marvel movies come out left and right. But it's harder now to put out a movie that is a clear 100% good guy, never done anything wrong in his life, versus a very evil person. Because it's been done. And over the last 90 years of making movies, you've had to make the anti-hero. And the villain that no one's just bad for the sake of being bad. Usually something has happened that made them bad, which is why even though the Star Wars prequel is fucking shit, people still like it because they want to see Darth Vader become Darth Vader. And I think now, maybe that's an outcome we hadn't considered, was that for a group of people that are just like fed movies their entire lives, maybe when you start to have good guys and villains that are both morally ambiguous, it all starts to you start to be attracted to villains more, because it's less of a jump than just being like, I want to be the fucking asshole. I don't know.
You want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, this is going nowhere good.
I have my own theory about why people are misinterpreting art.
Can I hear it
so
before
much.
we wrap up?
I think that we have not fully processed the trauma of World War II.
We've talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah. I think that we, especially because World War II ended the way it did, with like the United States did something unforgivable and unjustifiable in nuking Japan. And like, whether or not we even knew what the effects would be, like I've seen some people saying like, dude, we didn't even know that the radiation would linger like that, or that radiation sickness would linger like that. I can see no possible justification for describing what the United States did to Japan at the end of World War II as ethical or moral or good or right. And the fact that we need to continue to function as a country, even though less than 100 years ago, we did a really, really bad thing. And even before that, there were a lot of bad things that we did that we try not to talk about. I think that the trauma of that has put us all into this weird, tilted state of fantasy encroaching on our lives, because we always have to ignore this. There's this one big thing that happened in our history that we have to ignore because we can't process it.
Yeah.
You don't want to process the fact that your country that you live in and that you love and that you feel patriotic about did something really terrible, or in fact has been doing terrible things forever. You just don't. It's hard to come to a conclusion about that allows you to continue living the same life you were living before.
So this is a kind of a big question, possibly too big for this podcast.
A good question to get into an hour and 10 minutes into the podcast.
Possibly.
I like this. We're digging deep. Let's see how far down the rabbit hole we can get.
This might be too big to be discussing on a podcast where we usually talk about how
Resident
fucking
Evil
sweet
4.
Resident Evil 4 is.
Yeah.
So I know when we talked about Inglourious Bastards, we had a similar thing, I believe, or Tarantino movies in general, where there are these things in American history that, whether it be dropping nuclear bombs on Japan, or the fact that we had institutionalized slavery, or not that America did, but the fact that the Holocaust happened.
Mm-hmm.
Have you considered or ever thought about, and if you haven't, or you don't have any answers that you want to share, that's fine, because I'm just curious. Have you thought about what, in your opinion, it would take to begin to reconcile that knowledge that as we are different groups of people that were on both sides of this thing that happened that we didn't personally do, but people argue back and forth whether we live in, a state of some people are doing better because of that, some are doing worse because of it. Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea how to reconcile that thing that definitely was horrible and definitely happened, but we didn't personally do?
The closest I have come is that a good start would be an apology. Like an official apology. Just for someone who is in power to say it was wrong to do that. Because until you apologize, you cannot begin to heal the damage that you have done. Because until you apologize, you have not acknowledged the damage that you have done. So I think I don't know where we would have to go after an apology. I think that would have to be an ongoing conversation. But until we apologize, that conversation can't begin. I think that we're maybe approaching an apology when it comes to the chattel slavery, with the current movement to take down Confederate monuments. Like, I think if you're looking at the road to an apology, ceasing to honor the events is probably a good first step towards ultimately getting to an apology. So who knows, maybe 40, 50 years down the line. But then you see that people object to even the idea that we will stop honoring the events that happened as though they were right and good.
Yeah. This is big. This is maybe too big to talk about.
This is big, but what are your thoughts?
I don't know, because I have a hard time approaching it. And this is like stuff I don't even like to... I don't know why I asked this, because I don't like talking about it.
It's hard to think about. It's the thing that I was saying. There's a... Trauma doesn't like to be touched,
right,
is a saying that I heard somewhere once.
So I don't know, because here are things that are troublesome for me. I think recognizing and accepting the horrible things, we'll use slavery as an example.
That's probably the one that we're closest to acknowledging and getting past.
Recognizing that it happened, it not only was as bad as people say it was, but it was worse than people say it was.
It was worse than most people know.
It's important to do that, and then the only thing that I wonder about is when we talk about like an apology, is that it's for a lot of people, I don't know. It's so hard. I don't have this thought. I just think it's something that I think about. I think it can be hard for people to apologize when they didn't personally do something. Mm-hmm. And I think on the other side, I think what good does the apology do when you didn't personally do it? Not that it's, I don't know. I have a weird like dissonance with it, and I think that it's hard for me to get around that, because I think we should accept it and acknowledge that it was fucking awful and that it happened. But I don't know that like how you could propose an apology that could capture how what person or could say, or I guess one person can't say I'm sorry.
The President of the United States can say it. I think if the President of the United States of America said it was fucked up to own slaves and it was a mistake and it was a bad idea to have chattel slavery in America and it was wrong, and the people who took part in that system as the owners of slaves were wrong, and they should not be remembered as honorable people because they owned slaves, I think that would be a good start.
Okay.
You can still acknowledge, and this, I might even be wrong about this. I don't know. I'm going to leave it open.
We're not experts.
We're not experts.
We're media guys. I don't even know why we're doing this.
I don't even know why we're talking about this right now. Because it's got to come out. It's got to come out somehow. You can still acknowledge that Thomas Jefferson did good things, while also saying that he was wrong to not consider black people people. Black people are obviously people. Black Lives Matter. # Black Lives Matter. Right?
Right.
But Thomas Jefferson didn't think so. He's one of the founders of our nation. How do we square that away? I think the beginning of squaring that away is to say he was wrong about that. And the fact that he was wrong about that means that we should approach the rest of his opinions with a certain amount of hesitance. We don't need to discard everything he did, because I do think that Thomas Jefferson was a fascinating historical figure, but he was also a flawed figure.
I feel like I can certainly get behind that. I think it's I love the American experience, because there are certain things that are so strange about it to me, even though I am an American, where we'll take a person like Thomas Jefferson, who did some terrible things, and we speak about the Founding Fathers like they're superheroes, and that the words that they spoke are just as relevant today as they were in the fucking late 1700s. Which, in what other realm is that, like, do we do that? Do we just trust information that's hundreds of years old without ever questioning it? I think that is strange.
I think we have there are a few different ways that you can look at the Founding Fathers, and then there is the way that we actually look at the Founding Fathers. I think one of the ways that would be valid is to say, like, these men were geniuses. They were political science innovators. They started a country from whole cloth, right? Which had not been done very often in such a modern time. I might be talking out of my ass. I don't know if that's right. It doesn't happen all the time, and they kind of started a trend, right? Yeah. The other way you can look at them is to say that they were a bunch of fucking dorks who lived in colonial states, and they wanted to basically cosplay like the Roman Republic. You know, I think that's also a valid way to look at it. They wanted to recreate the Roman Republic. They had done a lot of fancy reading about Rome, and they were like, well, why don't we just make another country like that? We want to get rid of a king. They didn't really have a king in the Roman Republic. Let's see if we can work out some of the bugs in that system so that it doesn't dissolve into an empire as quickly, if at all, which, good job, guys. It's happening. It's starting to happen.
We're fucking there.
You fucked up. It's starting to happen.
2017.
So it's a good thing you allowed us to make amendments to the Constitution. Too bad we never, ever do that. But the way that people actually do look at them is informed by the fact that Americans, as people who live in a constructed nation, are hungry for myth. We need a national myth. Like the Roman Republic had Romulus and Remus, right? The brothers that founded Rome, or one of them. I forget. I don't know. But it was like a mythical origin story. And if you look back into the deep history of Rome, back when Rome was a kingdom, it's like the boundary line between whether or not these events actually happened or if these were just stories that the Romans told themselves starts to get kind of blurry. And it's as though there was an intentional effort to sort of put the mist of myth over the events of the founding of our nation so that we could have that great founding story. And
I agree.
And then the work of artists since then has been, once people realized that was what was happening, they were like, nope, that's fucked up. These guys own slaves. Fucking cut it out.
I think what fits in with that too is I enjoy American history.
X.
Yes, that too. But because I don't know how, I'm not from any other country except America, so I don't know. But I like that the narrative of America is told. It's just a series of winning. Like, it's just telling awesome things that we did, or even making shit up to twist events to be like, and then we won that time.
Well, it's like, let's run through it. I got time. Let's run through American history. All right. You've got the founding of the nation. What a win, right?
Yeah, great.
We fucking nailed it. We did a great job. The king was being an asshole. He was, right?
Yeah. So we came here. So we're like, fuck you, we'll do it ourselves.
Fuck you, we're gonna be our own country. You can't be our king anymore. We are our own country. And it even historically speaking, the king even said, like, you know what, America's all right.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't hold any hard feelings. He was cool with it afterwards. So you've got the American Revolution. Then we jump pretty much directly forward to the Civil War.
Yeah, we do.
Where we won again. We realized that black people are people and that you can't own them, man. You can't own another person.
Don't forget about when all the Indians decided to move to reservations.
Yeah, because they're like, listen, it seems like this is their destiny, so we're just gonna move.
We'll just all go to one spot.
We're just gonna go to one place. You know, we're happy together anyway.
I want you guys to get that other coast. I want you to have it coast to coast.
Listen, America, we're rooting for you. So that's kind of the story of the 1800s. And then in the 1900s, it's like, boom, World War I, we won it single-handedly. And then the 20s, we invented jazz. Fuck you. You remember those black people we decided were people and we couldn't own them? They decided to invent jazz.
And then at that point, you're like stoked that black people are part of that narrative.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, man, I'm really glad we did that. And then, we decided to single-handedly win the sequel to World War I, because everyone knew there had to be a comeback. Yeah. And then we fought communism for 50 years.
Too.
We went to the moon so that the Ruskies couldn't do it first. We won that race. We won Vietnam. Vietnam's where it starts to come apart a little bit.
Yeah. I don't really think I ever learned about Vietnam in high school.
No, you don't get there.
Yeah.
You learn about the American Revolution 10 times, and you never learn about Vietnam once.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
After World War II, the American narrative fractures. And maybe that's why we have so much head-to-head. It's because we cannot agree on what the story of the last 50 years is. And then when you try to talk to someone about the story of the last 50, 60, whatever, 70 years, then you realize that they have a completely different idea about the previous 200 years before that. And it's like, wait a minute. All right, we need to talk about whether or not Jews caused the Civil War. Yeah. We need to get into this first. So let's... Because that's the danger, man. That's the danger to turning your national story, your history of your nation, into a myth, is that people take myths and they use myths to reflect themselves back to themselves, so that they can construct an identity. It's a healthy thing. It's what everybody does. But if you take actual important recent historical events, which we have kind of only relatively recently decided are important, we've only recently decided that objective truth is something that exists and is important to attain.
Or I think, one of the big things that was interesting for me to learn, and I was just lucky enough to have been the age that I am, was when I was going through college. I was a history minor, and not that it was invented fucking 5 years ago, but the idea of a historiography is kind of gaining traction, and people before I was in college too, but it's a relatively new idea to think like maybe the rich white guys weren't telling the whole story. Because I read this journal from a poor person, and it's pretty different.
Maybe they had reasons to hide certain parts of their lives. Hey, rich white guys, that thing that you're ashamed of, let it lift off your shoulders. Ben and Curt do it too.
I don't like that because now I just associate rich white people with pedophilia, and I don't get into pedophilia.
Sexual assault. Yeah, we don't do that. We're not into. We're rich white guys. Cool it. Write to us about what you're into, and we'll tell you if we do it or not. All right.
That's a new thing we'll institute. You can
write us, and we'll tell you if we're cool.
Tell
with
us
it.
about a weird thing you do, and I'll tell you if we do it or not.
Yep.
I speak for Ben as well.
Yes. Yep.
Me? Fuck no. Ben? Yes, very much. He does wear those. We gotta stop.
All right. This has been a lot of fun.
It has. This has been, and you know why? Part of why this has been so much fun is because one of the problems that arises when you do a regular podcast with somebody. This is gonna sound too extreme, so I this isn't the best way to phrase this. But you stop being friends with that person and you start being coworkers with that person. You meet up, you do the research, you talk about it. Well, I'll see you next week when we talk about this thing. We don't really get to hang out that much.
Yeah, we
anymore.
We
Not that we ever really did, but we have hung out for fun before.
Yeah,
and we don't get a chance to very often.
Yeah, it was
anymore.
like we're seeing each other weekly. It's like I like hanging out with you.
Yeah. And now, look at us. We just had a real conversation.
For an hour and a half.
And now, unfortunately, someone else has to listen to it.
Someone gets to listen to this. They're fortunate to listen to this.
I'm going to say, I don't have the ability to check the stats to this level, but I would love to see the drop-off for this episode, like how strong it starts versus how many listen all the way through.
I think people are going to be compelled.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. I think people like a wide-ranging conversation that lands on several topics.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've kind of been talking about V this whole time. We kind of never left.
There are some hardcore V fans that are just
Dude.
like, this was the best fucking podcast. This was so well written. No.
We didn't write it. We improvised this.
From a book I've never read. This is just like high school. This is why I did so good in high school. Never read a single book. I just, I can carry a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
You can intuit where someone wants to go with it.
Yeah.
And you knew that I wanted to talk about V for 90 minutes.
Right? I wanted to play into your fear of technology and say that I am the worst example of what you're afraid of. I'm trying to replace my body parts willingly with robot parts and put an iPhone adapter on my body somewhere. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what are we doing next week?
I forget.
I didn't forget.
What are we doing next week?
Next week, I'm excited. This one's been on the list for a while. Let me check the calendar to make sure this is in fact next week. I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. So next week, a week from today, will be Christmas. Not for you and I, literally, Ben, but you people listening.
It's going to be close.
Will be Christmas. So we kind of did our Christmas console buyer's guide. We're not going to do too much else for Christmas with that. What can you say?
Oh, wait, now I remember what we're doing. Oh, this is going to be a good one.
So not only, more importantly, in this instance than it being on Christmas, is that it is the podcast day that falls closest to the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. So we will be...
The longest night of the year.
The longest night of the year.
We'll be watching 30 Days of Night.
Yeah. We will be talking about John Carpenter's The Thing next week. One of my all-time favorite movies.
One of mine as well.
Ooh, look at that. We'll have to... I wonder where we how much crossover we have in that. Probably not a whole lot.
About our favorite movies or about why we like The Thing?
Favorite movies. I'm assuming Major Payne is in your top 5.
Only because of the context in which I watched it.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about John Carpenter's The Thing. That's the homework, I guess, for next week.
That's your assignment.
The only thing that
Send your essays into us.
Yeah.
We'll read them on the air.
The only thing that I recommend for this is, obviously you don't have to watch it at all. You can watch it under any way you want to. but I highly recommend stay up late one night. Wait till a Friday night or a night when you don't have to work the next day. Mm-hmm. Stay up late. The time you would normally go to bed, just put the thing on. Watch it in the dark. Turn all the lights out. Watch it with there's snow outside. It's winter.
Yeah.
You got to set the stage to enjoy the thing properly. That's my advice if you want the most out of this movie. So we'll talk about that next week. And that'll be the last episode of 2017.
Yeah, it's been a fun year.
It's been a good year.
It's been a good ride.
And then after that, we're not going to have to do any planning for a little while because we'll be doing some year in review stuff for a little bit.
Yep, talking about our favorite albums and then our favorite pieces of visual media.
Yeah.
So that includes movies, video games, maybe comic books. I don't know. Did you read any comic books?
Yeah, I always read comics. Yeah. And that for that one, that will be of our year.
Yes, of our things that we experienced this year. It's not
limiting ourselves to things that came out in 2017.
Yep.
Not a whole lot for me as far as movies and stuff.
Yeah.
I really want to see The Disaster Artist.
Me too.
I can't wait to see that.
Yeah. It's playing at the Nickelodeon.
Yeah, it's the only theater around that's playing it, and that's like 45 minutes away.
And then another 30 minutes to park because you're in fucking Portland, Maine.
Awful. Yeah. Fuck that. All right. We're going to wrap this up.
Thank you for listening to this.
Thank you. If you're still on board at this point,
you're a true fan.
You're a big fan of B and C till at H.
Check out our Patreon.
Yeah. I for another peek behind the curtain real quick. I've dabbled with making a Patreon. It seems like a thing people do. And I go back and forth on it because I don't like asking people for money. It seems weird.
Well, it's like right now the audience is so small that we could ask each of them individually for money.
I could personally.
If I start a Patreon, my mom would just be like, "Why didn't you just? If you need money, why didn't you just
Honey,
ask?
If you need money,
if you ever need money, you can come to me."
But really, there's a particular YouTube channel that I watch sometimes that has a Patreon, and I hate that it just becomes a paywall. Like you can with this YouTube channel, you can feel that their best content goes to the people. They've established themselves, and then once they establish themselves, they make people pay to hear the best content.
Let's vow to never do that.
Okay.
Ever.
To never make a Patreon, or
to never hide it behind a paywall. I think we can find ways to reward people for paying us money while not getting rid of our best foot being the one that's out in the world.
The big one.
The big one. The one that we put the effort into.
Yeah. If this is effort.
This is effort. I don't want to know what it feels like to be lazy.
All right. That's good for us. As you guys know, you can listen to more B and C till at H and BGP by subscribing.
We've said it at least 5 times at this point.
Subscribing to BGB on IT and you can also stream our shows from Buzzsprout or YouTube, which apparently those people that are wondering about the movie they're wandering over to the YouTube.
We need to work in a current event every once in a while, something that happens in the world, maybe quarterly or something. We'll try to aim to
just give our thoughts on. We didn't even talk about Roy Moore tonight, which would have been a great night to do it.
Missed opportunity.
Today was like a gleeful day for me in the headlines. I was positive that Roy Moore was going to be elected.
I was a bit sad that Ben Chin did not make it.
I saw that as mayor. That holds less to me because I don't live in that town anymore. Yeah. But anyway, if you are a listener of the show, please give us a rating or drop us a review on iTunes. It helps the show a lot. Ben and I really appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K, along with numerous other social media sites. And now, can I launch the new one?
Yeah.
For the first time, you can follow Ben and Curt till it hurts on Twitter.
On Twitter, at Ben and Curt. Ben _and_ Curt.
What was Ben and Curt taken?
No, you can't. Well, you can't use spaces in a Twitter name.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's a weird place. I've tweeted once.
Ooh.
I twat once.
Holy fuck. Oh, man.
Cut that part out.
Nope.
Also, cut out the part where I implied what city I live in.
That would involve a little bit going back a little too far.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I'll keep an eye out for it, but
no promises. No promises. I'm not gonna hold you to that.
So yeah, we will be back next time to talk about John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, it's gonna be a good one.
That episode's going up on Christmas, so
Yep.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
I'm sure
everybody.
we'll say it at that that episode too. But good luck with all that holiday shopping because it sucks. I know that feel.
Oh man,
what awful! You know
everybody,
what?
stay safe on the roads. Also,
We'll do our Christmas is horrible episode. This Christmas has been so strange for me because I'm realizing that nobody expects anything grand from any of their loved ones, but each person wants to overdo for their loved ones. It's a weird thing.
that dynamic.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for staying on.
Yeah.
See you later.